What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today's video, we are talking about my favorite 5 baits for the month of October. No matter where you are in the country, these baits straight up catch fish. Let's go. The month of October is one of my favorite times to fish no matter where I am in the country. You know, that fall transition is in full swing, and that means the bass are chasing bait up shallow and they are chewing. You know, they are feeding up. You know, you're talking power fishing, topwater, crankbaits, wind, storms, but hopefully this isn't messing up the audio. Always windy when trying to shoot or rain. But topwater, crankbaits, swim baits, glide baits. Now is the time to get out on the lake and chuck some of these baits. You know, reaction fishing is some of my favorite fishing to do, and you will notice in today's video that I don't have any finesse setups because it is go time with the reaction baits. Like I said, get out on the water. It's all about bait fish. It's all about speed, covering water, and finding those fish that are schooled up and feeding up on the big balls of bait. So hands down, go ahead and put that glide bait down, because my #1 favorite bait this time of the year is going to be a topwater bait. Specifically a walking bait, something that goes side to side. I could change directions. You know, there's something to be said about a topwater bait that moves directions and acts like a fleeing bait fish. You know, these fish want to chase. They are, like I said, they're schooled up, they're chasing those big bait balls, and they want to chase. So now is the time to be throwing topwater, but specifically some kind of walking bait. This is the River to Sea Rover. Got a nice knock to it. Another good one right there. That is the Super Spook, and then the Shower Blows. They all have different sounds, but more importantly, they have that real wide side-to-side action. And like I said in the intro, this is all about speed. It's all about bait fish. So you're walking that bait super quick up on the surface, trying to mimic a fleeing bait fish or a smaller bass feeding on a bait fish. So specifically a topwater walking bait. So a Rover, a Shower Blows, a Spook, all 3 have a time in my arsenal this time of the year. Depends on the fish. You know, if it's something where it's clear water and you feel like those fish are finicky, I will go with a bait that kind of has a little bit more subtle of a knock. But if the water's stained, maybe you get a late afternoon thunderstorm, then I will go something with a little bit more tingy to it. So that's my 3 favorites. And just like every video, I will link all this stuff down below in the video description so you guys can see my favorite colors and all that good stuff. But one other topwater bait I want to talk about that really shines this time of the year, well, in the spring too, is going to be a little popper. So you said you heard me say I like to move these topwater baits really quickly. Right now those fish are schooling up. Sometimes they're blowing up on bait, and you'll see the fish blowing up and see the bait fish flying out of the water. And a great follow-up bait, if they are missing your bigger topwater bait, is firing that little popper out there and just slowly twitching it, because those fish like to get the leftovers, right? You know, those wounded, dying bait fish, they like to pick those up. So if you're having trouble this time of year having those fish get the bigger topwater baits in their mouth, try switching it up and go with the popper. So hands down, my #1 bait this time of year is going to be some kind of topwater bait, especially a walking bait. All right, now let's talk about #2. Again, if I haven't emphasized it enough, we are talking reaction, reaction, reaction. Now is the time those fish are moving to the backs of cuts, backs of bays, and they are really feeding on bait fish. So, second bait for me is going to be one of 2 different baits. If you are in a highland reservoir, totally depends on grass and water clarity, but if you are a highland reservoir, I am going with some kind of shallow jerkbait. That's the 110, that's the 110 Junior. Again, same thing with the topwater. If you're finding that your fish are missing that bigger topwater, that full-size topwater bait, and you need to go down to the popper, same thing with a jerk bait. If you need to downsize, check out that Vision 110 Junior. That is a really cool bait, and you can throw it on a spinning rod. But if you have clear water and less grass, you know, right now, a lot of these fisheries, either water elevation is dropping. You know, some of these places start pulling water for winter pool, but more importantly, a lot of your grass starts dying back. With these colder nights, you know, you can see I got a hoodie on right now. These colder nights, that water, that temp starts to drop, that grass starts dying back. So if you can get away with it, that jerkbait with the treble, the exposed treble hooks, is gonna be my #2 bait. If you are in a fishery that has a lot of grass still, you know, those fish are gonna move into that really lively grass. So we'll talk about it here in the next couple videos about the fall transition in full swing. But as this grass starts dying back, you wanna look for those really lively grass patches, because all those fish are gonna vacate where they were and go find that newer, lively grass. You know, and as it dies back, they're gonna go farther and farther and farther, looking for that livelier grass, and then eventually they'll transition to the hard structure, you know, your rock piles, your laydowns, dock pilings, that sort of stuff, but don't want to get too far on a tangent. Grass. If you have grass, that is when I will throw the fluke. You know, we just did a very in-depth fluke rigging video. I can link that down below in the video description, but a fluke, if you have grass, it's really, really hard to beat a soft plastic jerkbait rigged weedless in that grass. You're fishing it fast, just like the topwater, just like all these other baits I'm going to talk about. You're fishing it fast, you're fishing it aggressive, but you can fish this jerkbait through and around the grass and the laydowns, that sort of stuff. You can't typically throw that that normal treble hook jerkbait. So highland reservoirs, I'm going jerkbait. If I'm fishing a lowland reservoir or some kind of river system, a delta system, something that have a lot of backwaters, I'm getting in the very backs of those pockets with the grass, 100% I'm going with the fluke. You know, you can go with that nose rig setup, but typically I'm going with that guy right there. So we mentioned shallow, we mentioned those fish pushing into the backs of cuts, bays, mouths of creek channels. As they move back, you know, they're trying to feed up. That is where I'm going to hit them with my #3 bait. That is going to be the glide bait. You know, this guy right here, that is the that's the G-Rod, that's the Sneaky Pete. You guys know how much, I got 3 of them for you, depending on the different types of fisheries, how much we love the S-Waver and the Arashi Glide. This is a really cool bait if you like that kind of 200 size, a little bit larger presentation. Obviously that 168 S-Waver has been around for a long, long time, about a decade or so, and that is a fish producing machine. But a glide bait, so kind of talking about it, we're kind of talking about where these fish are going, but mouths of creek channels, mouths of bays, those choke points where those fish are going to start, like a funnel, picture a funnel, they're going to start funneling those fish into the backs of the bays, right? So those choke points where it gets narrower, that's where your biggest fish are going to be until they transition into the very back. So that's where I'm going to throw these bigger baits to really try and get a big bite. Again, these fish are feeding up. They're in that aggressive mode. You know, finally the water temps are dropping all summer. It's been hot, low oxygen level is in the water, but now it's go time, it's feed time, and they want to eat. So if I am really truly looking for a big bite, heck, when am I not looking for a big bite? I'm going with some kind of glide bait. You know, if these seem a little too large for you, go with that 168 size. Quite a bit smaller. You can throw it on your traditional jig rod if you don't need a specific glide bait rod per se. And then obviously this guy right here, that's the Sneaky Pete. We love that bait. This bait really, really shines in your fisheries that have current. You know, here on the TVA, depending on if they're pulling water, when they really start generating water and that water gets going, this bait is probably my favorite, not probably, it is my favorite glide bait in current. It works really well all the way up into rivers. You can get real erratic with it, real twitchy, real aggressive, and it doesn't blow out. So that guy right there, and again, the Arashi Glide and the S waiver. So that is 3. Number 4, this guy right here, some kind of shallow crankbait. Again, we talked about how these fish are going to the back. We talked about the grass dying back. A shallow running crankbait, a square bill, a lipless crank, even a little balsa square bill, balsa crank. That is going to be another bait that's going to be tied on all the way into winter pretty much for me. You know, these fish are going to be up shallow looking for those balls of bait, but what's cool about the square bill, just like all these baits, get real aggressive with it, right? Speed kills. Right now, it's fire out there. It's burn, 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 burn. If you hit a thing of grass, rip that thing, pause it, burn, burn, burn. You know, pop that thing, get it getting going really quickly and aggressively. As you come through that grass, you're gonna wanna rip it, pop it, pause it, let that thing kind of float up, burn it again, get real aggressive with the square bill. Now, if you don't wanna do that, you see I already talked about the lipless, but this is actually that 13 fishing. This bait right here, I'll link it down below in the video description, but it is a 1/2 ounce bait. You guys know how much we love throwing the LV500 and other lipless crankbaits that are 3/4 ounce. This is a little bit lighter, that's a 1/2 ounce. Now where this bait shines is ticking the tops of the grass. So the same areas that you would throw that square bill, you can get away with throwing the lipless crank. Now the difference is you can burn this, it's got a lot tighter wobble, and it's gonna run kind of like that, nose down, and it's easier to rip through that grass. So if you wanna give your fish a little different sound, little different action, tighter wobble, interchangeable, the lipless crank with the square bill is gonna be my number 4. You know, this guy right here, that's that little Spro. Matt talked about it last month, September, that is a really cool square bill when the water is still up above the grass and you need a square bill that'll run in that less than 2 foot depth. So that guy right there, again, I'll link all the stuff down below in the video description, and then that little Ott's Garage, that OG Slim balsa bait, another really cool bait. It is silent, but again, speed. You guys are burning this thing, ripping it through the grass, popping it, getting real aggressive. You cannot go fast enough. Again, I'll repeat, you cannot go fast enough. These things will hammer your baits. So put those cadence, those pauses in your cadence in there, and 9 times out of 10, that's where you're gonna get your bite, or when you're ripping it through that grass and you're freeing it up, and then bam, they're gonna hit it. So a square bill is always tied on for me this time of the year. Now, with that said, I will talk a little bit about the deep fish, and I want to backtrack a little bit for you guys that don't necessarily want to throw a fluke. So, you guys know that we designed this bait right here. That's the TacticalBassin DD crank. Right now, all the way through to next spring is the exact time that this bait was designed for. It's designed for colder water. So as we go through October into November, December, January, this is gonna be tied on one of our cranking rods no matter where we go in the country. It's got a real tight wobble. It runs anywhere from 12 to 18 feet or so, so it's really fishable this time of the year with the depths, the water levels. But it, like you said, can't go fast enough. Like I said, can't go fast enough. You know, speed cranking in cold water, this is really where this bait shines. Now, another great one is gonna be the DT series. That Rapala DT, either the 16, the 20, that's the 20 right there. Don't wanna leave those deeper fish out, but typically for me, I'm going shallow, less than 12 feet, you know, 8, 10, 6, back in the pockets, but little 6XD. So the deep crank, if you are a deeper water fisherman right now and you want to effectively target those fish in that 10 to 20 foot range, those 3 crankbaits are money. Again, it's all about speed. So do not throw this on a 5-to-1 and just crank it down there. You know, you're throwing it on a 7 or an 8 to 1 and you're burning it. I'm not gonna say it again. Burn, 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 pause, right? Burn, 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 pause. You guys have heard it for years now, but you get real aggressive with this bait as well. Now, one thing I do want to touch on is going to be color and flash. It's all about bait fish, and if you've noticed in any of these baits I've held up, most of them, gonna get blown away, guys. Most of them is gonna have some kind of shad pattern, right? That's that biggie. Some kind of shad pattern, but you can see right here, I went ahead and added a little bit more flash. See that? When that bait is coming through, you got the sides of the bait flashing and stuff. Now that VMC hook, you see that guy right there, they put a little swivel and a little blade on there to add a little bit more flash, and that really shines right now through fall. So you can add that to all of your cranks. It doesn't affect the way the bait swims, the action of the bait, but it just adds a little bit more flash to it and just makes your bait stand out a little bit differently. But again, color-wise, I'm going mainly bait fish. So your chartreuse shads, your shads, ghost minnows, something with a lot of flash definitely helps. Fluke fishermen. It was really hard to do this video without adding an underspin, right? We just talked about the flash. We just talked about the importance of speed and flash and making your bait stand out from the rest. An underspin. If you don't want to get up shallow and rip a soft plastic jerkbait through the grass, your next best option is going to be an underspin. That's that Damiki armor shad. That thing looks amazing underwater, paired up with that owner beast. Actually, not owner beast, owner flashy swimmer. You can see it's got that underspin on there. It's going to be weedless, Texas rigged, so you can fish that in the same area that you would fish that Texas rigged jerkbait. But it's all about the action. You know, that jerkbait, you got to get real aggressive with it. You want that thing skipping up on the surface, darting around. If you don't want to do that, or maybe you can't with your arms, or who knows why, right? Maybe you're just stuck with a spinning rod and a little bit longer. You can't get the real action of the jerkbait. Whatever it may be, if you want an easier bait to fish that maybe you want to give your kids or whoever, tie them on some kind of underspin, either a 3.8 size or a 4.8 size. Gonna rig it weedless and throw that flash on there. So there it is, guys, my top 5 categories of baits tied on for the month of October. You know, no matter where you are in the country, you're gonna have cooler nights. It is the start of fall and the water temps are dropping. You get those storms coming in, but the fish are feeding. It is, like I said, one of my favorite times to fish throughout the year. This fall time, especially that transition from summer to fall, can be lights out fishing. So just to circle back on a few things, number 1 is gonna be a topwater, a walking bait. You know, twitch, 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 get that thing going all over the place. If they are hitting it, blowing up, knocking it out of the water, you know, a lot of times these fish, especially spotted bass, smallmouth, they will hit your topwater with their mouth closed and just kind of knock it up and out of the water. So a tip for you, if you're working it really fast and they're just come up and just killing your bait, don't set the hook. Just keep twitching it, because a lot of times this time of the year, those fish are schooled up. So bass number 2, 3, 4, or 10 is gonna eat that bait when it lands. So if you set the hook and you rip that bait 10 feet out of the water towards you, you're gonna have a less chance of hooking up. So try to train yourself. If they're eating that bait or hitting that bait first, just keep walking it, let it hit water, let it sit, then walk, 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 and a good follow-up bait is gonna be that popper. Then the glide bait. If you're looking for a big fish, go with that glide bait. You know, you don't have to be overwhelmed or intimidated by the size of these baits. A lot of these baits you can throw, they're fairly light. You can throw them on your traditional gear. Some of these larger ones, you can move up into a swim bait rod, but I will link all that stuff down below in the video description. But if you're truly looking for a big bite right now, go to those creek channels, go to those mouths of those creeks, the backs of the, you know, where they start funneling down, where it's gonna go to the back of the bay, where that funnel point is, and chuck one of these guys right here. Fluke or a jerkbait, depending on if you have grass or not, or you're fishing in grass or not, totally up to you. But again, same thing, get real aggressive with that jerkbait And then shallow square bills. Burn that thing, rip it. Got a storm coming in, guys. Rip it, get real aggressive. Again, speed kills, I can't emphasize that enough. And then you deeper water fishermen, say those creek channels or the little funnel points where those fish are gonna be coming through to funnel into the backs of those bays. It's a little bit deeper, maybe there's a little bit of ledge drop off. That's where you're gonna go start the speed cranking. Again, this is gonna be tied on for us all the way through spring. That guy right there, or the 6XD or the DT, either the 16 or the 20, totally depends on the depth. But there it is, guys, my top 5 techniques for the month of October. It's a great time to get out in the water. The fish are active. You know, you can catch fish this big, you can catch fish this big depending on where you are, but the point is they are active and they want to eat. You know, you can throw, as they're schooling, you can throw a lot of things at them and they will eat a lot of things, but these guys right here are total confidence baits for Matt and I, and we hope you guys get out on the water with confidence and throw these baits with confidence because they work. If you guys have any questions, please leave them down below in the comment section. We will try to get to those as soon as possible. Again, we will link everything down below in the video description, favorite colors, hook upgrades, you know, talking about the different things you can do to make your bait stand out, favorite colors, sizes, all that good stuff. And if you guys like this video or you learned something from it, give us a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe. We appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.